Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Q&A this afternoon. I'm Mary Dossinger. I'm the program manager, and I am excited to be joined today by director Bill Brummel. He is the director of one of our incredible films in our RiverRun art section called Can You Hear My Voice? Bill, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's a pleasure to be with you, Mary, and it's a real honor to be in RiverRun. So thank you very much.
Thank you. It's an honor for us to be able to show this film. It's such an incredible film, and there is obviously a very personal connection to the subject matter. But even before we get started with that, I'm curious how, in particular, you came across the Shout Out Loud cancer group that you found, and tell us just a little bit about that journey to making the film.
Okay, well, it's Shout at Cancer.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. They're a nonprofit charity in the UK, based in London. But the story, how I found them, actually relates to my illness. I had a laryngectomy in 2016, and it took me a while to recover physically, but it took me longer to recover emotionally and psychologically.
Mm-hmm.
But when I did that, it was about a year after my surgery. I was at a regularly scheduled doctor appointment with my surgeon, and he knows what I do for a living. And he said, Bill, you should really make a film about the psychosocial aspects of recovering and living with a laryngectomy. And I thought to myself, stick to medicine, doc. I'm the professional here. But it really was a good idea. But it was just a topic and not a story.
Mm-hmm.
So I went home and fired up Google, and I forget the search terms I used, maybe laryngectomy, resiliency, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And very quickly I came across the Shout at Cancer website. And Shout at Cancer is a organization that was founded by a doctor in the UK who used to be a member of the Belgian Boys Choir. And he was figuring out how to combine those two interests. And he hit upon the fact that practicing singing techniques would benefit people who have had laryngectomies and who speak with voice prostheses,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of practicing singing techniques, breathing techniques. And so we formed Shout at Cancer. So I got him on the phone, and we hit it out right away. Thomas Morse is Dr. Thomas Morse.
Mm-hmm.
And he thought it was a great idea. And we can go into more of this later, but that just started me on the journey. You have to find funding, you have to do everything, get the choir on board.
Right.
But Dr. Morse is such, even talking to him and Skyping with him, I knew I had a great character in him.
Yeah.
He's a young doctor who looks like a cross between Harry Potter and a young Paul McCartney. So yeah, but he's so nice, so effervescent, and really cares a lot about these patients.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, he's incredible. And I mean, this film, there is so much to go into with this film, but one of the things too, as you said, this came from a very personal place for you, and you've been a filmmaker for many years. You have done incredible civil rights and human rights issues, so you're dealing with people in very vulnerable situations. So how was it for you to kind of have that flipped? Here you are, you're used to doing this, but now, while it's not your complete personal story of you in front of the camera, but it is still such a personal story for you. Did you have hesitancy? Were there times that you just wanted to put it away and not do it? Tell us a little bit about that.
No, I didn't have any hesitancy.
Well,
in really some ways, in a lot of ways, the film was cathartic for me and aided in my emotional recovery. These choir members are such great examples of people who have really had hardships and really had to struggle through emotional difficulties and just day-to-day living difficulties and physical difficulties. Mm-hmm. But their attitude is so tremendous. Mm-hmm. And I've thought a lot about survivorship and its relationship to attitude of mind. And in some ways, this film is my thesis on the topic. Although it's not academic, it's, when you watch the movie, you'll shed a few tears, but I guarantee that you'll laugh and cheer for this choir. I don't know that that completely answered your question, but, it was born of my cancer journey, briefly. In 1997, I was diagnosed with tonsil cancer that had spread to the lymph nodes on the right side of my neck.
Mm-hmm.
I was treated with a radical neck dissection where they took out most of the right side of my neck, and radiation treatments, a FT dose over a wide field for 7 weeks. It's likely the radiation treatment saved my life, but eventually the long-term damage from radiation treatments caused me to have a laryngectomy. So the long-term damage was my trachea was narrowing, my esophagus was narrowing, my vocal cord had scarring on them. And it got to the point in 2016 where I could hardly breathe, climbing 2 or 3 stairs, not flights of stairs, winded me. My wife said she could hear my labored breathing from other rooms of the house. I was in denial. I didn't want to do it. My doctor kept saying, a laryngectomy is in your future. But eventually it got to the point where my doctor was so concerned that I would have a breathing emergency at home or at the market, and paramedics would come out and do an emergency trach, which never turns out as well as if you do a surgery with a skilled surgeon. And for those who don't know, who haven't watched the film yet, laryngectomy is a surgery to remove the larynx, which houses the voice box and vocal cords. So at the end of the surgery, patients are left with a hole in their neck from which we breathe and without a voice box. And so there's, several methods, 3 methods really, to regain speech of some sort. It's a really, aside from the physical, it's really, it can affect patients' quality of life and mental outlook on life. I know when I was diagnosed, I was, the physical recovery was awful, but worse yet, I was saddled with insecurity and fear and doubt.
Right.
And it took me a long time to get through that. And I've learned different methods to get through that. But that's what the film is all about, I think. It's how to cope with survivorship, the mental strain of survivorship, in terms of especially a surgery that leaves a physical disability.
Well, and that's what's just so beautiful about it. And that the fact that you're not only allowing your story to be told, but all of the subjects you have in the film really open themselves up. And I think that's what makes it so beautiful. And I think what's also really fascinating to me is that not a lot of them had huge backgrounds in music either. And
no, not at all.
So you can see how art really transformed them. And I think that's what's so beautiful. I mean, it's giving them a voice, but also just giving them a new purpose as well. And it's so amazing to see that transformation with some of them, with all of them. I mean, it's just it's incredibly poignant. And it just shows also the true power of the arts and music.
Music is very powerful. There's a lot of studies. There's a film called a documentary film released about 5 years ago, I think, called Live Again, I believe.
Yep, we showed it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, Live Inside. Yep.
Wonderful film about Alzheimer's patients.
Yep.
And, just out of it. And when they were introduced to music that was important in their prior life, they just sparkle. Yeah. get with it.
Well, and I
Can
think
remember things and speak clearly about things.
yeah, well, and it's also incredible too that you watch them, because one of the things that amazes me most about any documentary film are people allowing themselves to be so open and vulnerable while being on camera, because it's definitely not something I think I could do. And so that always adds more to it. So again, here you have these people going through traumatic things in their lives. They're doing something brand new to themselves and then going to be on a huge stage in front of all of these people. I mean, it's so fascinating to see that process.
They were, I met with each one individually, each choir member individually, and we said, well, eventually we settled on 3 characters to focus on in terms of personal stories. But we filmed stories with 5 of the choir members. They all were good, but you know, I couldn't make a 2.5-hour film. So, but I met with each one of them, and I think that they had some hesitancy. But the fact that I am a laryngectomy as well, I think eased their mind.
Yeah.
They figured I would know how to handle the subject, which I hope I did.
Yeah, no, completely. And that's actually was going to be one of my questions. You kind of highlighted at that. I mean, documentaries are an incredibly laborious process. You don't just have an idea and start shooting. And then you often have hundreds more hours of footage than you can ever actually put into film.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So can you talk us a little bit through that editing, more technical process of how you structured it? I mean, did you already know about this particular concert when you started shooting, or were you just going to make a film about this group? Tell us a little bit about that process.
The idea that I talked about with Thomas, I mean, I knew they did concerts. They've never done a concert as ambitious as the one that we filmed. They did little things, you know, with the piano player and the choir members performing. But this is, for those, again, who haven't seen the film, there's a jazz trio, there's a saxophone quartet, there's a drummer, a separate drummer. So it was quite complicated. And it was taped and filmed at the fabled Tabernacle Theatre in London, which is an old church, but it's got it's a unique history. But I'm sorry, I forgot the question.
Oh, I was just the technical editing process.
Oh, yeah,
how you decided to structure it. Yeah.
I knew going in, like I said, we had a conversation with Thomas, and that we wanted to highlight a really ambitious concert. We didn't know where it was. We didn't know when it was going to be, even when we started filming. But I structured it, even in the outline, I structured it to follow the choir as they prepare and then perform the concert. And interspersed with that would be personal stories of several of the choir members that talked about their cancer journeys and their losses, you know, struggles with self-identity and self-doubt and loss on the road to survivorship. So I knew all that structure going in. And that structure pretty much held. You know, you have ideas about how stories are going to go, personal stories. And, you know, sometimes it's maddening documentary filmmaking because you have to be flexible and throw those out when you learn new details.
Right. And also, I mean, I know it's so hard for people when you get to know people. You said you interviewed all these various subjects. Are there any fun anecdotes or people you'd like to tell us a little bit about that didn't end up in the film?
Well, one person in particular, she's seen in like one shot, and we filmed the whole scene with her. She's not an active member of the choir, but she had such a incredible story and heartwarming story that I wanted to include her, but just couldn't. But her name's Lucy Loge, and she lives in central England, about 2 hours north, 2-hour train ride north of London. And she was 26 when she was diagnosed with laryngeal cancer. Had her vocal cords removed at 26, which is it's not only a old person's disease, but several middle-aged people and young people get diagnosed with that, with laryngeal cancer. So you can imagine 26, single woman, 26 years old. She's just life devastated by not having a vocal cords and having cancer. I really wanted to include her story because it really ended up well. It really ended up, one typical happy ending. She ended up finding somebody she loved, falling in love, dating, getting married, and one of her big regrets was she didn't think she would be able to fall in love or have a child, and she did both. She has what's now a 6-year-old boy.
Wow, that's amazing.
So that was really heartwarming. I wish I could have, included her, but that will end up as a bonus feature on the DVD.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And I mean, everyone's stories were so amazing. And just on a personal note, I have to thank you. My grandfather had a laryngectomy, and one of the things that really got him through, he was a huge storyteller, the storyteller of our family. And I don't know if it was his doctor necessarily who told him, but enough prompting got him to decide to write a book. And so he wrote a book essentially kind of for all the grandchildren, just to tell his stories of World War II and things like that. But I think having the laryngectomy and going through that process really made him think about it again and do it. And this film just slayed me in so many ways. So
I'm so happy to hear that about your relative. It's funny, all the three profiles that we do in the film, they're all writers of some sort. Sarah is write poems, and the poems that get adapted into some of the songs that are in the film. Bug writes poetry, and we Bug Halliday, right? He's a great character. He's 50 years old with tattoos and a full beard, and just sweet as the sweetest guy you could ever meet, and writing poetry, and such a relationship with his daughter.
Oh, so lovely.
Yeah. And Andrew Beaumont is sort of a stereotypical British stiff upper lip, but he's writing a book as well.
Yeah. Well, it is.
But I think, drama sometimes can spur people to creative endeavors to try and to help them explain what they've gone through.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it's amazing because then it also leaves this behind for people, and it's something that I'm not sure he would have done, and I don't know if necessarily all the people that you see in your film would have gone to do these things if not. Yeah, so it's so beautiful, and I just thank you so much for it.
Oh, well, I'm you're welcome, but thank you for having me at the festival and having me at RiverRun. It's just a joy.
Is there anything else our audiences should know to follow up with the film or to follow up on the film's journey?
And they can follow the film at CanYouHearMyVoice.com. The website is being redesigned, but the old one is still up. Okay. And you can follow along. What we're going to do, eventually we want to get the film distributed through just, the normal channels, international distribution and streaming services. But first, we're taking about 6 months, 9 months to do sort of a virtual screening campaign to get the film mainly to its core audience, which is, I think, the cancer survivorship community. But not only the cancer survivorship community, it's really a film that I think will appeal to anyone who's suffered emotional trauma of any kind, disability, other disease. I think they'll find in it that it's a way, and we show through these characters a way of coping, not just coping, with thriving with their survivorship.
Completely. And like I said, it very much spoke to me. and on many levels, and I think will to all audiences that see it. And I just really commend you on making such a gorgeous film, and just again allowing us to be a small part on its journey to bigger things. And again, thank you so much for joining me today, Bill. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mary. Bye-bye.